Hi, welcome to episode 5 of Ms. Shelved. Today we're going to be talking about books that are coming out this fall that we're very excited about.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Well, I'm just going to start with this book that I'm reading, that I'm about 45 pages in. It's called The Mothers. It's a debut novel by Britt Bennett. And the story opens up with this young girl, Nadia Turner, who's 17 and finds herself pregnant by the pastor's son. So right now in the story, in the beginning, it's in the aftermath of the pregnancy. She has an abortion. And the novel tracks into their adult lives of her and the pastor's son, thinking about the decisions they made as youth and how their lives might be different as adults. One of the features I like the stylistic things about this book that I'm liking is there's a Greek chorus element of sort of the matriarch of the church that the story is centered around. So it kind of reminds me of Fates and Furies a little bit, of this sort of all-knowing voice. This comes out in October, and I'm really excited about it, and I'm going to be recommending this to our readers.
I hadn't even heard of that one, so see, this is helpful for me too.
Yeah, well, you can borrow it when I'm done.
Right.
I want to stop recording this and go outside and read it.
Well, my top book on my list that I am super excited about is A Gentleman in Moscow by Amor Towles. Here's a small, tiny version of the cover.
A lot of buzz about this book.
Yes, and also, this is the Australian cover, which I think is gorgeous, so I wanted to show you that as well. Oh my god, yeah, I know, totally. So this is it takes place in 1922 in Russia, and there's a guy who has been arrested for being like an unrepentant aristocrat. And so an aristocrat, because it's, those times are gone. And so he is now he's under house arrest in the attic of the Metropole Hotel in Moscow, which just happens to be a hotel that I stayed at in Moscow like a year ago. So,
that's very cool.
So that's awesome.
Yeah.
But also, I read Amor Towles' first book, Rules of Civility, when it came out and totally loved it. So everything about this is just super exciting to me. So I cannot wait for this one. And this comes out in September.
Yeah, I'm equally excited about that. Rules of Civility was just such a beautiful, moving book. So let me talk about, I'm going to dive into some nonfiction. Shirley Jackson, Ruth Franklin, who writes for The New Yorker, is coming out with a biography about Shirley Jackson.
About this.
Yeah. So Shirley Jackson is well known for her classic short story, The Lottery, but she sort of is experiencing a little bit of a literary resurgence right now. A collection of her short stories was re-released, and some new stories were released. So she's thought to be one of the most unrated novelists, and her stories and novels are about like the domestic horror. So explored women's isolation and family and marriage. So she's sort of largely unknown, I think. So this book is going to position her, or helps position her more in the 20th century literary canon among like Sylvia Plath and Anne Sexton. It's the 100th anniversary of her birth in December, so it's pretty timely, coming out as well. And Ruth Franklin used previously unreleased and undiscovered correspondence and interviews to help frame this book. So biographies continue to be a really popular genre, so I think that though our readers who like the lives of writers will appreciate this one.
Yeah, I'm intrigued. I love Shirley Jackson.
Have you read more of her work?
I've read We've Always Lived in the Castle, which is one of my favorite books ever. I first read it as a teenager, and I just recently read it a couple years ago, and I still love it. And then I went right on and read The Haunting of Hill House, which I thought was also really great. So, so that's actually a great segue into my next.
Great.
My next book that I'm excited about for fall, which is a horror novel by Amy Lukavic called The Women in the Walls. And she wrote a book last year called Daughters Unto Devils, which was like my favorite book of the year. It's like young adult horror. And this one is about a family that lives in this like Victorian mansion, and the main character's mother died when she was like very little. And her aunt goes missing, but then her cousin has been like spending all this time in the attic and is like, saying that she's like talking to her dead mother up there, and it's really creepy, and there's like something about this whole heritage of like women in their family and some very ominous thing, and I just cannot wait because if her first book was any indication, this is going to be fantastic.
That sounds creepy and fascinating.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love like creepy horror stuff.
Well, delving from that, this book is it was about the lives of women in 1850s Ireland, The Wonder by Emma Donoghue. Emma Donoghue, most people are familiar with Room, the book that came out, I think it was in 2010, that recently was a movie, and won the Man Booker Prize. So this is set in rural 1850s Ireland, and it tells the story of a young girl who's claimed to have stopped eating. And has lived for months without eating. And there's a nurse who comes to the island who is a veteran of Florence Nightingale's army of nurses. And to take care of this young girl. And there's also a journalist on the island who's probably trying to uncover the story and find out what the truth is. For fans who like psychological thrillers, I think this will be very popular. A historical fiction, and this review said a gracefully tense young voice with a richly detailed historical setting. So I think this sort of be this interesting story of what is actually happening between these two characters and people's motivations for being on the island.
I'm looking forward to this one as well. And Emma Donoghue does historical pretty good.
Yeah,
pretty well. She wrote a book called Slammerkin that I really liked. That I can't remember exactly what time period it took place in, but she did a really good job with it. So it was totally different from Room, but really good in a different way. So.
Yeah, and I think with Room is the only one I've read, but like just capturing that voice of a child, of an adolescent, was so powerful. And
it's not easy to do.
No,
and she really,
especially in adult literature, I think. So the Wonder, Emma Donoghue. All right, what's next?
So my final one. This is like a really huge printout, but. Today will be different.
Because it's a big deal.
By Maria Semple. You may remember her from Where'd You Go, Bernadette, which I loved and have been recommending ever since it came out. And so this is her new one that's coming out. I think this is in October. And it's this woman who is like, her life is kind of just a mess. And so there's this one day that she's like, you know what, I'm gonna take care of all the little things today. I'm gonna like really focus and like I'm gonna go to my yoga class and I'm gonna do the things that I'm supposed to do. Yeah, and then, like, her kid decides to, like, fake sick so he can spend the day with her. And then her husband, he takes vacation. And he tells his job, but he doesn't tell her, so I don't know what's going on. So lots of things are, like, going not the way she planned. And, there's something about like some family secrets that have been buried that get dredged up. Anyway, the plot doesn't even matter. Like she just does, she just writes so well. She's so funny and so like spot on with her like. Where'd You Go, Bernadette was like so satirical about certain types of people in this neighborhood that they lived in, and I'm thinking that it might have some of that same flavor. So I cannot wait.
Satirical about modern parenting and marriage
and families
and relationships.
But just with a really sort of like kind of light, funny, but very smart. This is like I always recommend that book when people are looking for something that's. Not depressing, but that's good. They don't want to read fluff. But They want it uplifting and funny, and like it can be really hard. And that's one that I always recommend. And so I'm hoping that I'll be able to,
it's one of my as well. Where'd You Go, Bernadette is frequently one of my go-to recommendations. I can't wait. Get in line behind me in the holds.
Right.
So I think that's it. That's only 3 of like hundreds of books that are coming out this fall. So next time we'll be talking to you about the Arlington Reads Together shortlist. So giving some feedback, talking about how that process works and the 5 books that we're reading, one of which will be selected for the community read. Yeah. Well, thank you for watching, and thank you for the feedback we've gotten. So please keep your letters coming.
See you next time.
Bye.